On this episode of jsRebuilds, I'm going to show you guys how to turn this into this. I will explain what materials and tools that were needed and the process to turn your engine bays into good looking bays. My first step is to use engine degreaser and power wash the engine bay out. This will help eliminate any grease so I could prep the engine bay for body work. To prep your engine bay for paint, you will need purple scotchbrite, as my buddy Hector calls it, 60 grit sanding disc, and a hardened scotchbrite sanding disc. The tool I will use to grind down the spot welds from the removal of the transaxle mount bracket and the new welds on my radiator support is this Milwaukee angle grinder. The first thing I will do is use this angle grinder to grind down the weld spots that was left behind when I drilled out the spot welds on the transaxle mount bracket. Here I'm going to put the 60 grit sanding disc on the angle grinder. With this angle grinder, I'm going to grind down any spot welds, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind them down as flat as the frame rail. Once I'm done grinding with the 60 grit sanding disc, I will now use the hardened scotchbrite sanding disc to go over my work. This hardened scotchbrite disc will take out any deep scratches left behind from the 60 grit disc. Here, since I'm installing a JDM Integra front end, the process of grinding down the weld spots will also be the same. After the grinding work is done, now the body filler.
Normally, it's good to have a mixing board, but since I don't have a mixing board, I'm just going to use a piece of cardboard to mix up our putty to fill in the
scratches and filler work.
Okay, we're going to mix some hardener.
Once all the glaze is all mixed up, fill in all your body work. I usually try to skim coat it.
Just got done putting down some putty, and definitely not a professional job, but I'm not a professional. But I'm going to do my best to make it look like a professional. So you'll see the results after I sand this down. I'll spot prime it and block them out. Okay, for these spots, I'm probably going to use the smaller block.
For sanding paper, you will probably want to start out with more of an aggressive grit, like 120 or 220, to knock down the higher spots on the glaze. Then finish sanding it with 320.
Here I want to keep the block as flat as possible. And just kind of let the sandpaper do the work. And I was always told to use two hands and not put pressure like in the middle, but just kind of hold it here on both ends and just let the block do the work.
Before I spray on primer, I will blow off all the dust that was created from sanding. Next, I use primer to cover any body work or bare metal that has been exposed. Make sure you mask the areas you don't want primer overspray on. With any spots you use primer on, you want to use 320 grit sanding paper to block out your work. Since it's a smaller area, you probably won't need to use guide coat. Then, with 600 grit sanding paper, go over your 320 scratches. For this process, I will remove any wiring harness, bolts, or clips I do not want to get paint on. Once everything is out of the way, I will use the purple scotchbrite to scuff up the engine bay. So the goal here is to get rid of any shiny surface. If you want the paint to stick to your engine bay, make sure you do a thorough job scuffing with the scotchbrite. Once the engine bay is all scuffed up, I want to blow out the engine bay, blow out the vehicle completely inside and out.
For these lines right here, I'm going to back mask and not have a sharp cut paint line by taping it down. Next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to back mask this whole back top part of the firewall. So I'm going to rip the tape in little pieces. And I'm just going to stick it behind, and I'm just back masking it. So underneath here, there's a hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some tape in the back of the hole to mask it off so the overspray doesn't get inside. Let me show you what that looks like. All right, next thing I will probably do is I'll mask off the little studs that stick up. For example, here's a stud from the shock tower. Okay, and I'll finish off this top piece of the strut. Things like this where I am having problems taking it out, I will just mask around it. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll try to peel it back, and then I'll just fold the tape over. So if you can tuck the tape underneath, you'll get a cleaner look. Okay, for something like this, what I will do is I will just mask a piece of tape around it. Okay, same process. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to back mask the bottom side of the firewall. So I want at least some minimal tape sticking out. I'd say at least about half, a little bit more than half. So that way when you mask with masking paper with the piece of tape, you could just stick it on. And notice how I'm just tearing little pieces. It makes the job much easier. Okay, for things like this, I'm gonna go inside and I'm gonna mask from the inside so overspray doesn't get on the inside. And also, you wanna mask it up, that way if there's dust inside, it doesn't come out.
Next, we mask the whole car with plastic and masking paper on the outside of the masking of the edges. Now here we are using wax and grease remover to clean off the surface. Finally, we are using a tack cloth to wipe down the surface to collect any lint or dust with an air blower behind it. So what Hector is doing here is he's putting color in on the spots that are light first. Then what he's going to do is put on the first coat of color. After the first coat, he will wait 15 to 20 minutes to put on the second coat of color. Once the first coat is dry, before he will spray the second coat of base color, He will use a tack cloth to wipe down the surface again before spraying the second coat. After 15 to 20 minutes for the base coat to dry, he will apply the first coat of clear coat. He will wait about 10 minutes to apply the next coat of clear. In our case, we only just put 2 coats of clear on.
Final results. Hector just left. He got done spraying my engine bay. Came out great. And Ryan at Emmos Enamels picked out the color. He mixed the color. Thank you, Ryan.
If you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Comment below and please share. Thank you.